Hello, folks. Dustin Zarni here, Democratic Elections Commissioner for Onondaga County, and welcome to Commissioner Car. Today is Sunday, January 11th. I'm coming to you a little later in the day because, and I'm surprised I even have a voice left, because I wanted to watch the Bills play first. I was too nervous this morning to do it like I usually do around 11 a.m. But I do have a special guest here in the car with me, the MVP, Josh Allen. That's right. Win of Buffalo Bills, big time win down in Jacksonville today. Just an amazing, amazing win. Josh Allen beat up all game long and still coming back and winning it with a 10-yard push at the end to set up the game-winning touchdown. Just amazing grit by an amazing player and an amazing team, and just, you know, New York's only football team, the Buffalo Bills. Big win today. Go Blue, go Bills, go Josh Allen, and I'm really happy. All right, now, that's enough about football. What you're here for is politics. Well, not politics, but election news. This is my weekly podcast slash blogcast or whatever it is, but my weekly update on election news across New York State. This week's edition, we're going to talk about the New York State Elections Commissioner Association winter conference wrap-up. And we just came from there this last week, so this is it. But let's, that's where we were this last week at the Board of Elections. All of the senior staff, about 6 of us, were down at the at the winter conference, and we learned a lot this year. But it was Monday through Thursday. Then I actually had my last day off, my last scheduled day off for my winter vacation that I normally take. And I'll be back in the office on Monday the 12th. While we were gone, though, the Board of Elections continued to work. In fact, this week we got to the point where we finally caught up on the registration data from the general election. And this is actually one of the fastest times to get caught up that we've ever really seen, and that's because of the extra processing power we have with the extra people. But we were able to certify the election pretty early. It was like the week after Thanksgiving. There we had a few small hand counts, but the reason we get behind on stuff like this, the reason we get behind is because we're actually prohibited from registering people to vote from the 10th day before the election until we're certified and we're moving on with the rest of the election. That happened about mid-December. But what people don't realize is that we get hundreds upon hundreds of voter registration forms from the Department of Motor Vehicles, whether they're change of address forms or regular registration updates, as well as regular forms. So, in those 6 to 8 weeks that we have that we can't register people, sometimes 10 weeks that we can't register people, we actually build up quite a backlog. And we also had about 6,000 or so return pieces of mail that we had to get through as well to inactivate people that hadn't voted in the last election. We were prohibited from doing those from June 1st on. So, and our mail check card goes out in, mid-April. So we don't have that much time to get those back and get on those. So what I'm incredibly glad to report to you is that we are on schedule. We are totally caught up. So if you're wondering whether your voter registration update has taken place, or you just want to check it, go to onvote.net. And the voter lookup tool, you can look yourself up, see where you're registered to vote, see what party you're registered to vote in. You still have until February 14th to change your party if you want to vote in this year's primary. So do that. Check your party. A lot of people think that they're in a party because they vote that way all the time, but that's not necessarily the case. It's about where you're registered, not how you vote. And a lot of times people don't vote in primaries until something comes up that interests them. There's probably going to be a governor's primary on the Democratic side. There's rumors of a Republican primary in Congress. There's rumors of Democratic primaries inside the city of Syracuse and in the town of Manlius, and maybe even a couple of the assembly races. So there's a lot of, and maybe some county ledge races that are going to have primaries because they're up this year. So if you're interested, make sure you. I'm gonna remind you of that every week until the February 14th deadline. So back to the NYSECA conference. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week. Is focus on the New York State Elections Commissioner Association Winter Conference. But first, let me tell you what the New York State Elections Commissioner Association is. It's actually an over 100-year-old association of the elections commissioners in the state of New York. I believe it's like 110 now. It's been going on for quite some time. And it's actually was going on before we had the bipartisan model of elections commissioners that we have today. It's been going on, as long as we've had elections here. We've had elections for a lot longer than that. But as long as we've had this association, it's been going on. And it's a semi-private organization, although we're about to go 501c3. But it is a fraternal organization, which means that we advocate for both election commissioners, and just like the New York election laws, is a bipartisan organization. Everything in our organization is bipartisan, just like everything at the Board of Elections is bipartisan. And we have a rotating series of officers that serve 1 year. And then we have caucus chairs, which I'm one of. I'm the Democratic caucus chair. There's a guy named John Quigley out of Ulster, who's the Republican caucus chair. We kind of provide more stability because although we serve 1 year terms, we're not term limited by any stretch of the imagination. So whereas some of the other leadership positions are term limited. So we kind of serve as a stabilizing force, so all the work of the association is done. And what is the work of the association? Well, the association really has two different roles. The first role is these winter and summer conferences, which is our main training conferences, our main ways of getting training and getting information out to all of our member 62 county boards of elections. So that's a big thing right there. The second thing is that we advocate for election law changes that are voted on in a bipartisan manner at the association. It's called our legislative packet. And that is one of the first things that we do at the winter conference, is that we have a meeting. It's about a month-long process where both sides propose certain pieces of legislation that we want. Now, we're not a rule-making organization. We are a fraternal association. The people who make the rules are the New York State Legislature and, of course, the governor. So we can only ask them for changes. And by the way, if they make changes without asking us, which they do all the time, then we have to follow it, whether we agree with it or not. So that's what that was our first thing. We actually have a plank of about 15 or 16 rule changes. I'll probably cover that in a later Commissioner in a Car, because they're not ready to be published or not yet. So we'll talk about that in a couple weeks. One of the big things, though, that we're asking for is $35 million to be spread amongst the 62 counties, the 57 boards of elections, including New York City, which has 5 counties, that will help us deal with the even year law, bringing local elections to the ballot, and also the and also just the working of early voting, the working of all these other things that we have to do that New York State makes us do. We don't want the counties to have to pay all the bill on. They do have to pay most of the bill. And so that was our big ask. There's a few election law changes that are in there. And again, I'm going to save that for a future Commissioner in a Car. But we also discussed the implementation of automatic voter registration. you may have heard me talk about this a few times over the last few years. AVR was passed in New York in 2020, but it still has not been implemented. There's been a long process at the New York State Board of Elections to get that up, as well as Department of Motor Vehicles. There were several different RFPs on this with different agencies running it, and now it is finally set to go live. It's going to go live in February. First, DMV and SUNY and CUNY are going to go live. The SUNY is the State University of New York. CUNY is the City University of New York City. They're supposed to go live with automatic voter registration, which means anybody who's a citizen and attests to being a citizen that is interacting with these agencies will automatically be registered to vote unless they request not to. This is going to grow our voting rolls by about 30%, is what estimates have been from a lot of our states. That means it's probably going to be a pretty big dump for us as Board of Elections officials in February. So we're waiting for that. It's going to come. And we also talked about the contracting of ERIC scheduled for July 31st, 2026. The ERIC is the National Enrollment Registration Interstate Compact. The governor recently signed a bill that was passed in the legislature that required the New York State Board of Elections to enter into this contract by July 31st, 2026. This will be another more work for the boards of elections, but very good work, because this won't necessarily add voters to the rolls. It actually might clean up the rolls a little bit, because right now when people go out of New York State, we're depending on those states to send us voter registration information, and not every state does that in a timely fashion. We don't get that in a good fashion. So we are actually, this ERIC is a great way to clean up rolls of people who move and get them off the voter rolls. Save us money at the end of the day with we won't be mailing to people who are no longer there. But also, it'll make sure that the campaigns and voters are talking to the right people. It's something that the Democratic caucus has been pushing for years. So this is a long time wish of the Democratic caucus of New York State Elections Commissioners. Now, not every state is enrolled in ERIC. In fact, many states that used to be enrolled in ERIC got out of it after 2020 due to some ridiculous right-wing online rumors about how bad it was, which it wasn't. In fact, the elections commissioners all swore that they wanted to stay, but it was there was a lot of online spurious campaigns about how ERIC was somehow corrupt, which is not. There was nothing ever proven on this, just like the voter machines and all of that. So in the states that have it, love it. And now we're going to be probably, I think, the biggest state that will be involved in it now that Texas has moved out of it. So this is going to be big for the country and big for us. I did another thing that we're waiting on is the final decision on the Supreme Court redistricting. The governor had that delivered to her on December 31st of 2025. When a bill is delivered to the governor, on the last day of the year, she can elect to give it 30 more days, 30 working days, business days. So that actually gives it till February 3rd to sign this bill. This bill would add 3 Supreme Court districts for the counties of Erie, Monroe, and Onondaga. So this is something that is very much of interest to us in Onondaga. No longer would our Supreme Court candidates have to run in 6-member county districts. They would only have to run in Onondaga County as a whole. So we're waiting to hear. There's a lot of pushback from Democrats outside of these districts and Republicans inside those districts because of the nature of the electorate in those districts. I think it makes sense, not based on that, but based on the fact that our Supreme Court is wholly backlogged, and we need more Supreme Court justices and more branches to handle some of this backlog. And these counties need are some of the biggest counties, and they need their own Supreme Court to handle a lot of the stuff that comes out of them. So I think it's a good bill, but we'll see if she signs it. I did a presentation on data sharing with media and voters. I did that with my caucus counterpart, John Quigley. I talked a lot about how Onondaga County puts a lot of our stuff on our website, and it's readily available to them, and also our candidate portal, which is candidates and media get data regarding our elections and our voter rolls through that, so we're not inundated with requests of voter rolls all the time. And also, we all, one of the main reasons that we're there at this association winter conference is the training. There was a lot of training that went on by the State Board of Elections, a lot of training that went on by our fellow commissioners. We also have some user groups for our vendors. We meet with them. I met with No Inc., who's our poll book vendor. We met with Clear Ballot, who's our voting machine vendor, and NTS, which is our voter registration vendor. We met with all three of them in user groups. This is where in New York we have different vendors in every county. So there's good things about that and bad. But one of the things that means is that, we have these breakout sessions at the conference, and we focus in on what our vendor is bringing to the table, and also what we as register, as these, what our vendors are bringing to the table, but also we as commissioners need from them. So that's another thing we did. We discussed reforms, not just with our fellow commissioners that we want, but I also discussed some with the activists that were there. The League of Women Voters was there. There were several activists from Vote Early New York and others that attend. We talked both online and over luncheons and stuff like that about certain reforms that we're pushing that we would like their help on, but also reforms that they want as well. And then to cap off the association conference, the governor had a bipartisan reception at the executive mansion. We were in Albany. We were at the Desmond Hotel in Albany, and she invited us over. About 60 or 70 of the attendees went over to that. Representatives from both sides went over to that. The governor's a Democrat, but when she's doing these official acts, we invite everybody because, and she's actually done this for 3 years now. So this isn't an election year ploy. She's done this every year. She is very much supportive of the work that boards of elections do in New York and in the New York electoral system. So I was happy to go, happy to attend, and it was a great reception. My third time going there. The governor's great, and I'm sure that that shows. So hopefully it'll show also with some budgetary help this year as well. So that's what happened at the New York State Elections Commissioner Association conference. These conferences aren't junkets. They are, I'm in Albany. I love Albany, but it's not like a travel destination. Although the summer conference, we try to move around the state a little bit, give us something a little different. We've done it in Albany a couple times. I think the next one's at Turning Stone, which is the first time it's been in the central New York area. So I'm excited to go to that one. But we are exhausted at the end of those. Sometimes we have some, a DJ on the final night or something like that. But it is an exhausting day. It's 8 hours of instruction every day, and it is a full packed program. So, this isn't something that you just go there to party. It's a lot of work, and it's our main training. And it's very important that boards of elections continue to do that. I'm very glad that the Onondaga County Board of Elections is well represented there in our sessions with a lot of more staff going than we've had in the past. It helps with retaining the information and also learning and contributing. My deputy Desiree was on the planning committee for the conference, so it was her first time doing that. My former deputy Julie Cook did it as well. They did it because they wanted to do it, not because I'm the caucus chair and I've asked them to do it. They actually did it on their own. So this is something that I'm very happy about, happy to be a part of, and happy to have. So now we're looking at back. I'm back to work on January 12th. The week of January 12th is, and really the whole month of January is a transition month for the Board of Elections in terms of the top staff. Over the next month, before the end of January, at the end of January, we will have our reorganization meeting where we elect the president and secretary of the board. There's only 2 of us on the board, and we usually flip-flop who's the president, who's the secretary, so on and so forth. But that being said, we also have a ton of policies that we have to adopt. We adopt policies anywhere from dress code policies to how we count ballots, when we count ballots, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of ambiguity in election law that allows the boards of elections flexibility. And so we find it much easier, at least I find it much easier, to adopt these rules now in January. Because A, every campaign knows when it is, what we're doing, but also B, the boards of elections, operates a lot smoother if if we know ahead of time when we're doing things. So when we adopt those policies, that will be a commissioner in a car. I'll talk about some of those policies, any changes that have been from previous years. I don't anticipate major changes, but we always change a little bit, so we'll see what happens. Sorry, my voice is going because I've been yelling at the bills, yelling for the bills. So this last week, I launched my second part look at Onondaga County. I looked at the Onondaga County suburbs. A lot of great data in there in my weekly walk. Check it out at dustinsarney.com. There is data on how the towns outside of the city of Syracuse are registered to vote, but also how they performed and what are the trends over time. So there's some really interesting data in there. Again, I've been sprinkling some age data into these reports. That is my focus this year, to give a better picture of the age, how age is affecting our electoral politics here in Onondaga County. And then I'm hoping on either Wednesday or Thursday to do the third part of my 4-part series looking at Onondaga County, and I'll be looking at the city of Syracuse. We did the towns, now we're going to do the city, just an overall view of the city, just to kind of give an idea of where things are. And then I'll wrap up the next week with my 4-part series. We're looking at the county ledge districts, since the county ledges are up this year. So that's going to be pretty important to do as well. So last week I did a trivia question. Really glad I did this one. I kind of changed my trivia question at the last minute because some people were liking some of the age data that I've been doing. And last week's trivia question was about the average age of the Onondaga County voter who voted in 2025. Now, the previous week's trivia question was the average age of the Onondaga County voter. That turned out to be 50 years and 50.87 years, so about 51 years of age. The average age of the people who voted in 2025, a massive change, 59.33. That's almost 9 years older, 8.5 years older than those who are registered. This is a big number. It actually kind of surprised me that it was this big. This really gives you an idea of, in local years, how much older the electorate is, because they tend to vote more and the youngers tend not to vote in local years. We'll see if that changes in 2026. So, but I might do some data on voter turnout from 24 and 25, because that's when I have the most recent voter history turnout data because that's when we have our new registration vendor. So might do some of that going into the 2026 election. But that's a big thing. That's a big thing. I think that was I was surprised it was that much. I knew it was more. I'm surprised it's that much. So this week's trivia question, which I'll answer next week, is what is the smallest registered voter town in Onondaga County by active voter? Now, we know the largest. The largest is Clay, right? I mean, we knew that. I don't think that would be a big surprise. But let's go for the smallest town with the number of registered voters. I think you'll be surprised. So, smallest town with the number of active registered voters. That'll be the trivia question for next week. And next week's Commissioner Carr, I'm going to do a segment on vacancies. We have 3 vacancies that are being filled because of this last election. A vacancy out in the town of Marcellus, a vacancy in the city of Syracuse, and a vacancy in the town of Pompey. And all 3 of them have weird situations going on with them about why the vacancies are coming up and why and how those vacancies are being filled. So I wanted to go over that. I think it's a neat little subject. And of course, there is the Commissioner of Education thing that is going on. I won't have an answer for you next week. In fact, they don't have their hearing until January 20th. But I'll touch a little bit about that and what that vacancy might look like. But I can tell you that one's very complicated and the process is ongoing, so there's not much I'm going to talk about there except for the theoretical possibility of a vacancy. And we'll talk about that next week. So that's all I got for Commissioner in the Car. I hope you follow along at DustinZarny.com. You can subscribe, get an email notification every time I have content or election news updates. Or you can follow along on any of my social medias. You can find me at Dustin Zarny. Now, I don't know who we're playing next week as of this moment. The Bills most likely will play Denver. If New England beats the Chargers, then we'll play Denver. If the Chargers beat New England, then I'm not sure who we're playing. I think then we'll play the winner of the second game, which is also going on sometime today. So lots to find out about where the Bills are playing, but we know one thing. We know 2 things. We know the Buffalo Bills are going to be playing next week, and we know this man right here. This man is the MVP, and he will bring it home. All right, let's go. Go Buffalo. Go election boards, back to work, and follow along. Thanks. Bye-bye.